Hello friends! Your Procreate journey starts here. This easy, approachable guide will help you start drawing in the app today. First, I'll give you a tour of the app so you'll learn what the tools are and where to find them. Then I'll show you a few basic gestures which will help streamline the drawing process. And finally, I'll walk you through this tutorial step by step where you'll get to try cool features like Quickshape, distort and transform, clipping masks, and much more. Let's dive in. A couple quick notes. At the time of this recording, I'm using Procreate version 5.4. Now, this app is designed to work best with the Apple Pencil. If you'll be using a third-party stylus, just be aware that some of the drawing features might not work as intended. Also, if this is your first time drawing digitally, it might feel a bit strange to draw directly on the glass. So I highly recommend using a screen protector for a more pleasant drawing experience. Let's take a look around and get familiar with where everything is. The gallery is the first thing you'll see when you open the app. This is where all of your artwork is stored, either as individual files or in stacks, which are essentially folders where you can group multiple files. In the top right corner, you've got three options. Select will allow you to select one or more artwork file if you want to move them to a different stack or just reposition them. If you have a Procreate file saved elsewhere, you can tap Import to import that file, or you can tap Photo to import a photo from your camera roll. Next to those options, you'll also find a plus sign. Tap that to create a new canvas. Now here you'll see a second plus sign, which you can tap to create a custom size canvas, which I'll show you a little bit later. And below that, you can save your own preset sizes. For now, we're just going to tap on the screen size preset. With the canvas open, you can see that there's a toolbar along the top and a bar on the left side. The tools on the top right are your drawing and painting tools. Think of these as your art supplies. First on the list is your brushes. The brush icon will open up the brush library. Here you have access to over 300 brushes in two different libraries. First, you've got the Classic library. And now with the new 5.4 update, you also have a Procreate library. Be sure to watch this video for a full tour of the new and improved brush library. The finger icon is the smudge tool, which you can use to blend, blur, or push color around. All of the same brushes from the brush library can also be used as a smudging tool. The next icon is the eraser tool, which of course will erase whatever you've drawn. The eraser tool also accesses all of the same brushes, so you have the flexibility to change the look of your erased marks. Next is the layers icon, which will open up the layers panel. This is where you'll organize all the elements of your artwork, and we'll dive into this in more detail when we start drawing. If you tap on this circle, it will open up the color panel. And this is where you can select, save, organize, and edit your colors. You can watch this video for a full tour of the color panel and all its features. On the left side of the screen, you'll find the sidebar with a couple sliders. The slider at the top allows you to change the brush size, and the slider at the bottom allows you to change the opacity of a brush. If you tap on the square in the middle, it will pull up the eyedropper, which you can move around to select the different colors on the canvas. When you find a color you like, you can lift up your pencil, and you'll notice that the color swatch changes to that color. The two arrows at the bottom of the sidebar are the undo and redo buttons. Tap the arrow pointing to the left to undo your last action, and the arrow pointing to the right to redo. Now on the left side, you'll see a link that will take you back to the gallery. And then you've got your editing tools. Now the drawing tools on this side are what you'll use to make the art, and the editing tools on the left are what you'll use to modify and manipulate it. There are several features in this section, but I'll just focus on the basics you'll need to start drawing. This wrench is the Actions menu. When you open this up, you'll see a menu at the top, and each of those sections opens up a different set of features. If you tap Add, you'll see options to add several different things to your canvas. You can add a file, a photo, or text. Canvas is a section you'll probably use the most under the Actions menu. This is where you can crop or resize your canvas. You can turn on and off your drawing guides. You can pull in a reference photo, and you can find the canvas information like when the file was created, how many layers you have available, how much time you spent on the artwork, and so on. You can tap the share icon to export your file, and you've got several different file types to export to. The video section is where you can watch or export a time-lapse video of your drawing process. As long as time-lapse recording is toggled on, Procreate will automatically record your process every time you start a new canvas. Then you've got preferences. As a beginner, you don't have to worry too much about all of the options under preferences, but there are two that will probably be quite helpful to you right now. This first one lets you choose between a light or a dark interface. I personally prefer the light interface, but I know a lot of people prefer to work in dark mode. The second option allows you to move the sidebar. So if you turn this on, it will move the slider to the right side of your screen, which might come in handy if you're left-handed. I'll share a couple more helpful preference settings as we get further into the video. Next in the editing tools is the adjustments menu. Here you'll find many different effects that you can apply to your artwork. A great way to explore these is to draw a solid shape and just try each effect to see what happens. The S-shaped icon is the selection tool. When you tap on it, a small menu will appear at the bottom of your screen with several different options. You can just leave this set to freehand, and it will allow you to draw around whatever object you want to select. Now, what do you do once you've selected something? This is where the transform tool comes in handy, which is this arrow icon. If you tap that, you can move, rotate, and adjust your selection. Now let's take a look at a few of the basic hand gestures, which you'll find helpful when drawing. You can use 2 fingers to pinch, zoom, and rotate the canvas. A quick pinch will return the canvas to full size. Remember I showed you how to use the arrows on the sidebar to undo and redo an action? You can do the same thing more quickly with gestures. Tap on the screen with 2 fingers to undo. If you tap with 2 fingers and hold, you can rapidly undo up to 250 actions. Now, this can sometimes cause accidental undos, which can be frustrating, so I would recommend increasing the delay. If you go to the Actions menu, make sure you've got Preferences selected, then look for Rapid Undo Delay. You can use the slider to increase the delay. I'm going to change it to 1 second. Now, the rapid undo won't kick in unless I have my fingers down for a full second. Then you can tap with 3 fingers to redo. If you tap with 3 fingers and hold, it will rapidly redo up to 250 actions. When you're on a particular layer, you can scrub back and forth with 3 fingers to clear everything on that layer. Now remember when I showed you the sidebar, there was an option to tap the square in the middle to bring up the eyedropper? Well, you can also do that with your finger. Tap and hold with 1 finger until the eyedropper ring pops up. And as I showed you before, you can drag the eyedropper around the canvas to select a color. Now when you're working on a canvas, your menus will always be visible. But if you tap the screen with 4 fingers, it will hide all the toolbars and you'll be in full screen view. Tap with 4 fingers again to exit that mode. When you're in the gallery, use a 2-finger spread to pull up a preview of an artwork file. When you're in that preview mode, you can swipe left or right to preview more artwork from your gallery. This isn't a gesture, but I just want to mention that you can also scroll back and forth by tapping on the left or right side of the screen with the Apple Pencil. You can then pinch the image to exit the preview mode. Now this works for stacks as well. If you're not sure what you saved in a stack, just 2-finger spread on that stack to pull up the preview, and you can swipe through to see what's inside. If you 2-finger pinch, that will exit the preview mode and you're back to your regular stack view. Okay, that's the basic rundown of many of the commonly used features of the app. Now I'm going to walk you through the process of drawing this illustration so you can actually put those features to use. Before we start drawing, I'd love if you'd like, comment, subscribe, and watch till the very end because it really helps the channel. During the tour, I showed you how to open a preset canvas. Now let's create a custom canvas. Tap on the plus sign, then tap on the small plus sign next to New Canvas. As you can see here, you have several options for the unit of measurement: pixels, inches, centimeters, and millimeters. We're going to stick with pixels. For the width, enter 4,000 and enter 3,000 for the height. DPI stands for dots per inch, and it determines the resolution of your image, or how sharp and crisp the image is. Anything below 150 DPI would be considered low resolution, and your artwork might appear pixelated. Make sure your DPI is set to 300 for a good quality, high resolution image. Once you determine your dimensions and your DPI, then you're going to see how many layers you have available. And this number will shift depending on the settings you enter. The larger your canvas size and/or DPI, the fewer layers you'll have available. Now at this size, this is a relatively large high-resolution file. And as you can see, I have 152 layers to work with. We're going to need about 15 or 16 layers for this tutorial. Now, if you don't have enough layers on your iPad with the canvas set to 4,000 by 3,000 pixels, you can change the size to 2,000 pixels wide by 1,500 pixels tall, but you still want to keep the DPI at 300, again, so that it's a high-resolution file. And as you can see here, it will significantly increase the number of layers you have available. I'm just going to stick with the 4,000 by 3,000 pixel dimensions. Something to keep in mind is that the number of layers you have available at any given size will depend on your specific iPad. The more RAM you have available on your iPad, the more layers you'll have to work with. For reference, the iPad I'm working on has 16 gigabytes of RAM. Okay, so we've got the dimensions set. In the menu on the left, you'll see color profile, time-lapse settings, and canvas properties. Now, color profiles can get fairly complicated, but in a nutshell, you've got options for RGB and CMYK. RGB is best for digital images, anything that you're going to be viewing on a screen, while CMYK is best for print images. We're going to keep the color profile set to RGB, and we'll just stick with the default setting. Under time-lapse settings, these are just the default settings for the time-lapse video that Procreate will automatically record. There's really no need to change anything here. And under canvas properties, we're just going to leave those default settings as they are as well. So now we can just tap on the blue check mark to open up that canvas. Now, what if you've already created a canvas and you want to resize it? You can just go to the Actions menu, tap Canvas, then tap Crop and Resize. If you go to Settings, you can change the dimensions or the DPI. I'm not going to make any changes, so I'm just going to hit Cancel. Let's choose our first brush. Tap on the brush icon to open the brush library. And we're going to go to the Classic library, look for the calligraphy set, and the brush we're going to use is the monoline brush. If you're new to digital drawing, this is a good brush to start with because it creates clean lines with crisp edges. It's not pressure sensitive and there's no taper, so you don't have to worry about the size of the stroke shifting. Speaking of shifting sizes, here's an important tip. With some brushes, you'll notice that the size of the brush will change depending on how much you've zoomed in or out, even if you haven't adjusted the brush size with the slider. This can sometimes be confusing or frustrating, especially when you're just starting out. To prevent this from happening, go to the Actions menu, open up the Preferences, then turn on Dynamic Brush Scaling. This ensures that the size of the brush remains the same no matter how much you've zoomed in or out. If you'd like to use the same colors I'll be using for this drawing, I created a color palette for you. There's a link in the description for the free download, which will include step-by-step instructions for how to save this color card image. Once you have it downloaded and saved to the camera roll on your iPad, go to the Actions menu, tap Canvas, then tap on Reference to open up the reference window. Tap Image, then tap Import. Find the color card image on your camera roll, then tap to import it to the reference window. You can change the size of the reference window by dragging any of the corners. We're going to save these colors to a palette. Tap and hold the first color until it invokes the color picker tool. When you let go, you'll see the color here change. Tap on that circle to open up the palette panel, then tap the plus sign to create a new palette. Then tap on one of the empty squares to add this color to the palette. And you can just repeat this process until you've added all of the colors. For a more in-depth look at the colors panel and all of its features, be sure to check out this video, which I'll link to in the corner and in the description below. The other resource I created for you is a drawing template to help make the process much easier. Again, there's a link in the description for where you can find all of these free downloads. Let's import that template. Go to the Actions menu, tap Add, then tap Insert a Photo. If you've already downloaded the template and saved it to your camera roll, find that image and then tap to import. Open up the Layers panel and you'll see that that template image has appeared on a new layer. If you tap the layer, a menu will pop up with several options. You can tap Rename to change the name of a layer. To the right of the layer name, you'll see the letter N. If you tap that, a panel will pop up showing you all of the different blending modes. Now, blending modes are usually used for advanced techniques, so we're not going to make any changes here. Just note that the N stands for normal, which is the default setting. The one setting that we will be changing is the opacity. This slider allows you to adjust how transparent the layer is. Let's drag the slider to the left to reduce the opacity on the template layer so that it's visible but not too distracting when we start drawing. Now we don't want to draw on that template layer, so tap on the plus sign to create a new layer above it. Notice that the active layer, which is the layer that you've tapped on or the layer that you're currently working on, is always going to be highlighted in blue. Anytime you create a new layer, it will appear above your active layer. For example, if I tap on the bottom layer, which is a template, and then I create a new layer, you see that that new layer is appearing right above the template rather than on top of the layer stack. To move layers around, you just tap and hold until it kind of pops up, and then you can drag it into whatever position you desire. If you swipe left on a layer, you have the option to lock it in place, duplicate it, or delete it. I'm going to delete this one since I don't need it. On the template, it looks like these vases are just kind of floating. So in order to make the drawing feel grounded, we're going to draw a surface for them to sit on. Let's use the drawing guide to make sure our line is straight. Go to the Actions menu, tap Canvas, then turn on Drawing Guide, and a 2D grid pattern will appear. If you tap on Edit Drawing Guide, you can make adjustments to that grid. You can change the color of the lines. You can change the opacity or the thickness of the lines. And you can change the size of the grid. You can also change the type of drawing guide. The default setting is this 2D grid, but you also have options for an isometric guide, perspective guides, and symmetry guides. We're just going to stick with the 2D grid. Tap the blue check mark to exit when you're done editing your guides. Let's go to the color panel and choose the seafoam green from the palette. We're going to draw a horizontal line a little bit more than halfway down the drawing, so it'll intersect the neck of the third vase. Now, drawing perfectly straight lines can be tricky, but we can use Procreate's Quickline feature to help out. Remember our gestures? I'm going to tap with 2 fingers to undo that line. Now, if you draw your imperfect line and keep your pencil down, the Quickline feature will kick in and change it to a perfectly straight line. If you continue to keep your pencil down, you can adjust the length and angle of that line. Okay, so we're done with our drawing guide, so go back to the Actions menu and tap the toggle switch to turn the drawing guides off. Next, we're going to fill this bottom section with color. Instead of doing it manually, we're going to use the color drop feature. So you're just going to go to the color swatch and drag it into that space to fill with color. Now we want to create a 2-tone background so that there's color in this top section as well. This time, let's go to the Layers panel, and below the layers, there's a section specifically for the background color. If you tap that, it will open up the color panel, and let's tap on the pale green to make that the background color. Now it's time to move on to drawing the vases, but as you can see, the template is now partially hidden. So let's go to the Layers panel and tap on the layer where you drew the surface, and then drag that below the template layer. Now the template is completely visible. Next, we're going to draw the vases. Create a new layer at the top of the layer stack. Choose the hot pink from the palette. Then use the template as a guide to trace the shape of the vase in the center. Remember, you can use 2 fingers to zoom in or rotate the canvas to help position things so it's most comfortable for you. By the way, a quicker and easier way to draw this shape would be to use the symmetry guide, because everything you draw on one side of the canvas would be mirrored on the other side. For a full tutorial and more details on the symmetry feature, you can watch this video, which I'll link to in the corner and in the description below. When you're done drawing the outline, you can drag and drop the color to fill the shape. Now, here's an important note about the color drop feature. You need to make sure that your shape is fully enclosed. If there are any openings in the shape, the color will spill out and fill the entire canvas. Again, you can watch this video for more details about how the color drop feature works. We're going to add another vase to the right of that. Now, the second vase is essentially the same shape, so rather than drawing it again, we can just reuse the shape we just drew. So go to the vase layer, swipe left, and then tap Duplicate. Now we've got the same shape on 2 different layers. Tap on the Transform tool, and you're going to drag the second vase over to the right. Go to the palette and change the color to Electric Blue, then drag that swatch onto the shape to fill with the new color. I'm going to rename that layer with the blue vase. Tap the N and reduce the opacity to about 45% so that it looks like the vase is made of glass. Now we also need to make it smaller. So go back to the Transform tool, make sure it's set to Uniform to ensure that the proportions of the shape don't change, and use one of the blue nodes in the corner to reduce the size so that it matches the template as closely as possible. Although I've matched the width, you can see that the vase on the template is a little bit shorter. So let's change the setting to Freeform, then use the center node at the top to squish the shape slightly. With the setting on Freeform, we can play with the proportions so you can either stretch or squash the shape as you need to. Now for the third vase. Let's create a new layer, then choose Chartreuse from the palette. We're going to draw a rectangle in this spot, and we're going to use the template as a guide. Again, we can use the Quickline feature to make sure the lines are straight. So when you get to the end of each line, keep your pencil down until it snaps straight. Make sure the shape is fully enclosed, then use the color drop feature to fill. This vase isn't that interesting, so we're going to alter the shape. Tap on the Transform tool, and this time we're going to set it to Distort. Then we can adjust the length of each edge. I'm going to make the bottom edge more narrow by pushing these corners in, then drag this top right corner upwards to exaggerate the shape even more. When you're pleased with your shape, tap on the Transform tool again to exit that mode. In the same way the Quickline feature can help you draw a straight line, it can also help you draw a clean curve. The process is the same. Draw your imperfect curve, keep your pencil down, and it will snap to a clean arc. If you keep your pencil down, you can change the length or angle of the arc. I'm going to speed this up for the sake of time, but go ahead and pause the video to draw your stems. Now we don't want to see the ends of those stems. So let's go to the layer where we drew the stems and drag it below the layer with the pink vase. Now those ends are hidden behind the vase. Now let's draw this set of stems. And we want them to look like they're sitting inside of this glass vase. So they need to be on a layer below the blue vase. Remember that when a new layer is created, it shows up right above the active layer. So let's tap on the pink vase. Tap the plus sign to create a new layer, and that new layer is now below the blue vase right where we want it. Let's change the color to bright green, and we'll also make the brush size a little bit smaller. Then go ahead and follow the lines for the stems. Now the placement doesn't need to be exact, we're just using the template as a guide. Now let's draw these leaves. Let's make the yellow vase the active layer, then add a new layer above it. We're going to use this same green, and we're going to trace the shape of those leaves. You can use the Quickline feature to help you draw the arcs, or you can draw the curves freehand. Then use Color Drop to fill both shapes. We're going to add 2 more leaves, but instead of drawing new shapes, we're going to duplicate and manipulate the shapes we already have. Go to the layer with the leaves, swipe left on that layer, and tap Duplicate. Go to the Transform tool, and we're going to select Flip Horizontal. Then drag the duplicated shape over to the right. Tap the Transform tool again to deselect. Now let's resize and reposition them. This time we're going to go to the Selection tool, and make sure it's set to freehand, then draw around the first leaf to select it. Go back to the Transform tool, this time make sure it's set to uniform, then resize and rotate that leaf. Let's do the same with the second leaf. Go to the Selection tool, select that shape, then tap the Transform tool and rotate and resize as you need to. Since both these leaves are on the same layer, if you tap on the Transform tool without selecting them first individually, you can rotate or resize both leaves at once. So we have each pair of leaves on a separate layer, but we don't need them to be separated. We can just pinch those 2 layers together to merge them down to 1 layer. Then we can drag the leaf layer below the yellow vase layer so that those leaves look like they're coming out of the vase instead of sitting in front of it. So at this point, we're done with the template. So we can go to that layer and uncheck that box to turn the layer off so it's no longer visible. Now let's add flowers to these stems. Find the layer where you drew the stems for the pink vase, then tap on the plus sign to create a new layer right above it. Choose Lavender from the palette, and we're going to draw these flowers using very simple shapes, and the Quickshape feature will help. Let's use circles for the first flowers, starting with the 3rd stem from the left. Draw a circle, and it will be imperfect, and that's okay. Hold your pencil down, and it will snap to a clean shape. When you lift your pencil up, the Quickshape editing options will appear at the top of the screen. Now this isn't quite a true circle, it's more like an oval or an ellipse. So tap on ellipse, and you have the option to keep it as an ellipse or make it a circle. Let's tap circle. While these blue transform nodes are visible, you can adjust the size and position of the circle. To change the size, you're going to tap on the line and then drag it in or outwards. Note that if you tap the blue node, that will adjust the shape, and we don't want to do that. To change the position, you'll tap in the center of the circle to move it around. Then you can drag the color into that circle to fill. We're going to draw another circle here on the 6th stem, and I'll show you another way to do it. Again, you're going to draw your imperfect circle, keep your pencil down until it snaps to a clean shape. While your pencil is down, tap on the screen with one finger with your other hand, and that will snap the shape to a perfect circle. If you want to adjust the size and position, you can just tap Edit Circle at the top of the screen, and those transform nodes will reappear so that you can change the size and position as you need to. Then you can go ahead and fill the shape. Now let's change the color to red. This time we're going to use ovals to make a simple 3-petal flower. Let's start with this first stem on the left and draw an oval right in line with the end of that stem. Again, hold your pencil down so it snaps to a clean shape, and then you can edit that shape by making it a little larger or changing the angle if you need to. You can just tap the screen to exit editing mode. Now we're going to draw a second oval to the left of that and have it angled away from the first one. Again, lift your pencil, tap Edit Shape, and you can adjust the size and the rotation. Let's do that one more time and have the third oval angled in the opposite direction. Keep in mind that we're drawing all of these shapes on the same layer. So once you pick your pencil up, these overlapping shapes will be joined together to create one shape. Now, since these lines all overlap, we now have several smaller shapes within the large shape. So we can use the color drop feature to fill one section, then tap continue filling at the top of the screen. Then you can just tap on each of those smaller shapes to fill them. Tap on the blue check mark to exit that mode. If your flower shape is a little wonky where all the ovals are connected, you can just draw a line to clean that up. All right, let's draw another flower like that one on this fourth stem. So first draw that center oval, then add the two ovals on the sides, adjusting each shape as you need to. Now, instead of tapping on all of these small shapes to fill them, we can go to the eraser tool, and let's also set that to the monoline brush. And we can erase all of those intersecting lines, just leaving the outline of the flower. Then we can just drag the color into that one shape to fill. All right, let's switch the color to chartreuse for the last two flowers. This time we're going to draw these freehand. Draw a teardrop shape and make sure the pointed end lines up with the stem. Then I'm going to add a little detail to the top so it's more like a bud than a flower. And we'll repeat the same process for this one as well. Now you should have 6 simple flowers and they're all on one layer. Now let's add some leaves to these stems. Go to the layer where you drew the stems for the pink vase, and let's switch the color back to mint. And we're also going to switch to a different brush. So open up the brush library. Let's use a 2-finger pinch to close the classic library, and then open up the Procreate library. You can also use this tiny little arrow here to switch back and forth between libraries. This time we're going to use a tapered and pressure sensitive brush so you can get a feel for what that's like. Make sure you're in the pen set, and we're going to use Liffey. On the preview image, you can see that the ends of the stroke are much thinner than the center. That's how you know this brush has a taper to it, which means that the line will get larger the more you press down with your pencil. You can learn more about this brush and how it works in this brush review video. We're going to use this brush to add a few leaves to these stems. These can be really simple almond-shaped leaves, or you can give them a bit more of a wavy curve. If you find that your lines are a bit wobbly, here's what you can do to make them smoother. Go back to the brush library, tap on the brush, and this will open up the Brush Studio, where you can make adjustments to the brush. Now, there are a ton of settings here, but don't be intimidated. You really don't need to know most of these when you're just starting out. But there is one setting that can be really helpful right now. Go to Stabilization, then under Streamline, increase the amount to about 50%. Then tap the blue check mark to exit the Brush Studio. Your lines should look a little smoother now. Of course, the more you practice and the more comfortable you become with controlling the brush, the easier it will be to draw smoother lines. By the way, if you want to reverse any changes you made in the Brush Studio, just go to the About This Brush section, then tap Reset Brush. Okay, now let's add a few leaves to these stems as well. Switch the color to bright green, then go to the layer with the stems for the blue vase. I'm going to use a slightly different shape for these leaves. Rather than an almond shape tapered at both ends, this is more like a stretched out teardrop shape. Now our layers are starting to add up, so let's organize things before we add any more layers. So we've got 3 arrangements here. Each arrangement has at least 2 elements, a vase and leaves, sometimes a vase, leaves, and flowers. So we can group the objects in each arrangement together. So first there's a chartreuse vase with the leaves. So tap on the vase layer to select it, then swipe right on the leaves layer to select that one as well. Then tap Group to put those 2 layers in a folder. You can tap the little arrow here to close and open up that folder as you need to. Now, if you tap on that group, a menu will pop up with a few options. Let's rename the group. I'm just going to call it Chartreuse Vase so I know what's inside. Next, we've got the blue vase and its stems. So I'm going to tap on the vase layer to select it, swipe right to select the second layer, then group them. Finally, select the layer with the pink face, as well as the flowers and stems layers. Group and rename those as well. Now that everything is grouped, if you deselect one of the groups, it will turn off all of the layers that are within that group. You can also make adjustments to an entire group. Just select the group that you want to change, tap on the transform tool, and you can move the entire group, rotate it, change the size, whatever you'd like. So far, we've only used flat color and pretty structured shapes. Now let's add a little texture and detail. Open up the brush library, make sure you're in the Procreate library, go to the pastels set, and let's choose Meadowbank. Switch the color to hot pink, then open the group for the blue vase. Tap on the vase layer and create a new layer right above it. We're going to use a few simple strokes with this textured brush to create tiny flowers at the ends of each of the stems. There's no need to be precise. This can be very loose. This brush is quite forgiving, so you can let the texture do a lot of the work. I think I'll add a few fallen petals at the base of the vase as well. Okay, now close that group and open up the group with the pink vase. We're going to add a few details to these flowers. So tap on the flowers layer, create a new layer right above it, then choose Lilac from the palette. On these circular flowers, we're going to start at the center and draw short curved lines rotating around each other until it fills most of the space. Again, you don't need to be precise here. We just want to give the impression of flower petals nestled together, kind of like a rose or a peony. Go ahead and do the same for the second circle. For the buds, let's use a lighter version of this chartreuse color. So go to the palette, select that color, then go to the disc view, then move the reticle, this little selection circle, up and to the left until you find a lighter version of that color. Then you can tap the color swatch to close that window. I'm just going to add a few short strokes to the lower section of each of these buds. We're going to use this color again in a minute, so let's save it. So go back to the palettes view and just tap on one of the empty squares to add it to the palette. Next, we're going to add stamen to the red flowers. So choose the lavender, and you might want to drop the brush size down a bit for this. So we're going to add a relatively long line to the center and then have that flanked by shorter lines. And I'm going to add a dot above each of those lines. And do the same for the second flower. All right, that arrangement's all done, so we can go ahead and close that group. Then open up the group with the chartreuse vase. Let's add a line down the center of each of these leaves. So tap on the leaf layer and create a new layer above it. Change the color to mint, and I'm going to drop the brush size down again to about 3%. Then just go ahead and draw each of those lines. Now, so far, all of the embellishments we've added have fit neatly within all of the shapes. But what if we want to add a pattern that spills off the edge of a shape? This is where clipping masks come in handy. Let's add a polka dot pattern to this vase. Tap on the vase layer and create a new layer above it. Tap on the new layer so this menu pops up. Then tap clipping mask. An arrow will appear on the new layer pointing down to the vase layer below. This means that anything we draw on this new layer will be confined to this shape that's below it. Switch the color to the light yellow we saved earlier, and let's draw a few large polka dots on this vase. If I turn the clipping mask off, then you can see exactly what was drawn. With the clipping mask on, the parts of the dots that fall outside of the vase shape are hidden. Let's try that one more time, but this time we'll add stripes to the pink vase. So I'm going to close the group with the chartreuse vase, open up the pink vase group, tap on the vase layer and create a new layer above it. Make that new layer a clipping mask. Switch the color to hot pink And we're going to create a darker version of this color. So go back to the color disk, and this time we're going to drag the reticle down and to the right. There are other options for using masks in a similar way to enhance your artwork. And for a full demo and explanation, you can watch this video, which I'll link to in the corner and in the description below. All right, we can close that layer group and our illustration is done. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Procreate will record the drawing process for you. To watch the time-lapse replay of your drawing, you can go to the Actions menu, tap Video, and then tap Time-lapse Replay. This will show you every move you made during your entire drawing process. You can drag your pencil to the right to speed up the video. If you go back to the gallery, you'll see your new artwork sitting right there. To name it, tap Untitled Artwork, then type the name you want to use. Now, to get your artwork off of Procreate, you can export it in a few different ways. Go to the Actions menu, tap Share, and to export a flat image, you can use the JPEG option. You can then airdrop the image to another Apple device, save it to your camera roll, you can save it to the Files folder on your iPad, or save to a Dropbox or similar folder. To share an image with a transparent background, you can choose the PNG option. And if you want to keep all of your layers intact, you can export as a Photoshop or a Procreate file. Now here's an important note. Procreate does not automatically back up your artwork. So if something happens to your iPad, you could potentially lose your artwork files. So it's really important that you export your files and save a backup to your computer, Dropbox folder, or wherever works best for you. And there you have it. You're officially a Procreate artist. I really hope you found this helpful. For more tips, check out my Procreate Tips and Tricks playlist. And if you'd like more drawing practice, you can watch my step-by-step tutorials. I'll share a link to both playlists in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.